But I'll go through and get you these answers here. And there was one major problem that was a mistake for 1A. And you guys will all get that point back. For 3B AP stat students, I've corrected it, so you should be able to do the problem correctly. Okay, so let me go through here and make sure everything's set up. And with number one, it says find the correlation between the daily temperature and the number of meals they okay a fancy restaurant found the correlation between the daily temperature and the number of meals they serve to be a 0.40. On a day when the temperature is 2 standard deviations above the mean, the number of meals they should plan on serving is blank the mean. And of course, we have to pick an answer. When you study this very carefully, you generally read from left to right unless something tells you otherwise. So when I read from left to right, I go daily temperature, X, number of meals, Y. And then it says on a day when the temperature is, and that's the key, that's the input when the temperature is. So that still is the X star, that's the particular X we need, is 2 standard deviations above the mean. Whoa, right there. When you see on a day when temperature is 2 standard deviations above the mean, that means the number of standard deviations for the particular X value above the mean is equal to 2.0, and it's the Z value. Okay, that's an important parameter to be aware of. It says the number of meals they plan should be on serving is, and then you look at these choices: standard deviation, standard deviation, standard deviation. Oh, they're talking about the predicted number of standard deviations in the output variable Y, and that right now is a question mark. So when you identify all of that, something has to come into your mind and say, oh, I'm going to use the, the formula, the predicted number of standard deviations of Y is equal to R times the number of standard deviations of X. And if you remember that formula, boom, this problem is easy. And so you say the predicted value, the predicted number of standard deviations is the correlation value, 0.40 times Z sub X, which is 2, equals 0.8 standard deviations above the mean. And that means it's choice D, letter D, however else you wanted it, pardon me, to indicate that. So that one's done. Next. A regression analysis of students' AP statistics test scores and the number of hours they spent doing homework found R squared equals 0.32. Now, when something is given to you between two variables and they don't tell you which is the X and which is the right Y, you read from left to right. So AP test scores is the X, and number of hours they spent doing the work is the Y. I know your gut tells you maybe we should switch it. Number of hours they spent doing homework should come first, and AP test scores should come second. Okay, fine. It depends which way you want to identify it. As long as you told me which way you identified the information, in this situation, it would appear that this may happen first and this may happen second. But during the test, I said read from left to right. So from left is still X, to right is still Y. And therefore, you have to write the statement. 32% of the variability in hours studying is accounted for by the AP statistics test score. I know your instincts may occasionally have told you number of hours comes first, AP test scores come second. but they could have done the analysis in reverse. And I did say during the quiz time to read from left to right. So this is the way it gets written. All right. Next, number 3. On a particular AP exam, we find there is a positive association between the number of hours sleeping before a big AP exam and the AP exam scores. The correlation coefficient equals 0.8. Which of the following is true? All right. This is very clear. It says before a big AP exam. So the number of hours you identify as X. The AP exam score, this situation is Y, because they specify which one they want first, which one they want second. The correlation coefficient is 0.8, so R equals 0.80, which is true. 80% of the variability in AP scores can be accounted for by hours of sleeping. Whoa, this stuff cannot happen because what I'm interested in is in R squared. R squared represents the percentage of variability, so A can't be the answer. Now, when you look at B and C, R squared is 0.80 squared, which equals 0.64, which we know is 64%. So now this has the word predicted variability. That's very tricky, isn't it? The truth is, every time I've done these problems, we're talking about the actual variability in scores, because the predicted variability would have 100%. This seems kind of weird to you, but 100% of our model is correct when we talk about the actual line. The actual line is the prediction line, and it is 100% accurate. But when we're talking about the overall variability in our scatter plot, there is no word predicted. I know this is tricky. The answer is C. I'll take off a half a point on this one if you circled B, and I'll take off a full point if you circled A. That's just how I'm grading that one. So when we say the variability of the Y variable, that is in your notes and it is written that way. So there's no discussion here. Moving on. The residual plot is from a scatter plot measuring temperature, which is the Y, to time of day, which is the X. Explain what key feature of the graph strongly suggests that the model is not good for predicting the temperature from the time of day. You could flat out have drawn a curve in there and say the residual plot appears to have a non-random non-random pattern. We'll leave it at that. Let's keep it simple. A non-random pattern. You could say the residual plot appears to have a curve. Okay, so I'm just giving you some examples of possible answers. Of course, if you said anything about the curve, you should be right. I just have to watch the way you worded the question. But if you mention this and definitely draw a curve in the graph, that makes it very clear to me you're identifying there's a problem here. Good enough. Moving on. Number 5, I goofed up bad. Okay, so 1A, my 1A AP students, for those of you who are looking at this thinking that it was totally bogus, but you circled B anyway, congratulations. That is the most correct answer for a bogus answer. In fact, none of them are right because it should have been these. It should have been, as students send more emails, their grade will drop. We never talk about causation. That's out. As students send more emails, there's a greater likelihood their grades will drop. Yes, greater likelihood, tends to, seems to, appears to. Yes, that seems good. And the last one, the more emails they send, the more their friends ask them to party, so their grades will drop. Well, as much as that might be true, nowhere does it even talk about parties, so gone. So the answer would be B. And even in the way this is worded, B is the only statistically accurate statement. So for those of you who looked at it and said, this is weird, but I think it's B, your mind is working in the correct direction, but it was a bogus problem in my answers. Now 3B, you will get these and you will answer the question correctly. 6. Look at these scatter plots and regression lines and answer the following questions. Which one has the most negative slope value? most negative means on a number line, here's 0, here's -1, here's +1. Most negative are the ones that are going in that direction. And that means you need to know your decimals. So negative 0.04, that's, I'm approximating now, that value is less than negative 0.028, I'm sorry, that one, which is less than negative 0.019. So the bottom line is you have to remember your orders of numbers, and you should know negative 0.04 is the most negative. So that would mean graph C. And I hope you put a C there. Next problem. Okay, next part. Next one. Which one has the strongest evidence that there may be a linear association between the two variables being measured? Well, the only statistic we can use is the R value, and we look at this one. R equals negative 0.9888, and negative 0.9888 is less than negative 0.8267, which is less than negative 0.273. And the one that's the most negative, the one that's closest to the -1 value, is the strongest evidence. So it has to be this one. And that also corresponds to graph C. Now, explain what about the R value tells you this, and you would have to write that in the sentence. You would say negative 0.988 is the closest correlation coefficient value to -1 of all, let me go here, of all the negative correlation coefficients. And so I've just written down in words what I explained to you in the video, and you're supposed to do the same. I'll check your answers to see how close, if you mean the same thing. If there's something about your wording, I will let you know. Now, for everybody here, watch the video. If you don't like your quiz score, rewrite all the correct answers. I would hate for you to copy word for word what I wrote, but write something similar to that. And I'll give you half the difference of what you scored to what you got corrected. And I hope you get this done within the week, actually before the test that's coming up on October 26th and 27th for B-Day. All right, well, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this works out for you. Keep hitting the replay button until it makes sense, and I'll see you in class.